In the small town of Brooksville, where everyone knew everyone else's business, Emily and Sarah's friendship was the stuff of legend. They'd grown up together, shared secrets, and navigated the turbulent waters of adolescence side by side. But beneath the veneer of their seemingly unbreakable bond lay a simmering tension, a silent rivalry that would ultimately lead to a dark and tragic end. Emily Hart was the quintessential small-town girl, with her bright smile and infectious laugh. She was the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking into it. Sarah Collins, on the other hand, was more reserved, her beauty understated and her demeanor calm. Together, they balanced each other out, forming a friendship that seemed unshakable. From their early school days, it was clear that Emily was the star. She excelled in academics, sports, and social circles. Sarah, always the supportive friend, stood in her shadow, never once showing any sign of jealousy. Or so it seemed. As they grew older, their paths began to diverge. Emily's star continued to rise, while Sarah's accomplishments, though significant, were always overshadowed. It was during their senior year of high school that the first cracks in their friendship began to appear. It started innocently enough. Emily had been nominated for Homecoming Queen, and Sarah, ever the loyal friend, had campaigned tirelessly for her. But when the night of the dance arrived, and Emily stood on the stage with the crown on her head, Sarah felt a pang of something she'd never acknowledged before. Resentment. The feeling was fleeting, quickly buried beneath layers of loyalty and love. But it was there, a seed of discontent that would grow and fester over the coming years. College saw Emily and Sarah attending different universities. Emily went to a prestigious school on a full scholarship, while Sarah attended a smaller, local college. They kept in touch, but the distance between them grew, both geographically and emotionally. Emily thrived in her new environment, quickly becoming the darling of her university. She was on the dean's list, president of her sorority, and had a string of boyfriends who were all enamored with her charm and beauty. Sarah, meanwhile, struggled to find her place. Her grades were good, but she lacked the social sparkle that came so naturally to Emily. It was during one of their infrequent visits back home that the first real argument between them erupted. Emily had come home with tales of her latest adventures, while Sarah had little to share. Feeling overshadowed and insignificant, Sarah lashed out, accusing Emily of being self-centered and oblivious to her struggles. The argument was bitter and left both girls in tears. But like all their previous disagreements, they patched things up, vowing that nothing would ever come between them. Yet, the seed of resentment had grown, and its roots were deep. The real turning point came when Emily announced her engagement to James Parker, a successful lawyer she had met in college. Sarah was happy for her friend, but as she stood by Emily's side helping to plan the wedding, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her own unfulfilled dreams. Sarah had always been the quieter, more introspective of the two. She had dreams of her own, but they had been overshadowed by Emily's dazzling success. As the wedding day approached, Sarah found herself questioning her choices and the path her life had taken. It was during the bachelorette party that things took a dark turn. The night was filled with laughter, dancing, and too much alcohol. Emily, ever the life of the party, was the center of attention, while Sarah watched from the sidelines, nursing her drink and her growing discontent. At some point during the night, Emily pulled Sarah aside, a concerned look on her face. "What's wrong, Sarah? You've been so distant lately." The words were meant to be comforting, but they struck a nerve. Sarah, her inhibitions lowered by the alcohol, let out a bitter laugh. "What's wrong? What's wrong is that my entire life has been about you. Your successes, your happiness. What about me, Emily? When do I get to be the star?" Emily was taken aback, her eyes wide with shock. "Sarah, I had no idea you felt this way. Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because it wouldn't have mattered," Sarah snapped. "You wouldn't have noticed. You never do." The argument that followed was heated, and when it was over, both girls were left feeling hurt and betrayed. Emily tried to reach out in the days that followed, but Sarah avoided her, using the excuse of being busy with wedding preparations. The day of the wedding arrived, and Sarah plastered on a smile, determined not to let her feelings ruin Emily's big day. But as she watched Emily walk down the aisle, radiant in her wedding gown, Sarah felt a surge of bitterness so strong it left her breathless. After the ceremony, during the reception, Sarah found herself at the bar, drowning her sorrows in glass after glass of champagne. It was there that she met Alex, one of James's groomsmen. He was charming, handsome, and, most importantly, he seemed to see her in a way no one else ever had. They spent the night talking, and for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt special. But as the night wore on and the alcohol continued to flow, Sarah's thoughts grew darker. She found herself confiding in Alex about her feelings of inadequacy and resentment towards Emily. Alex listened, his expression thoughtful. You know, Sarah, sometimes people like Emily need to be taken down a peg. Maybe it's time you did something for yourself, something that will make you feel powerful. The words were like a spark to dry tinder, igniting a fire within Sarah. She knew what she had to do. Over the next few months, Sarah began to distance herself from Emily even more. She immersed herself in her work, throwing herself into her job at a local marketing firm. But all the while, she was planning, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came when Emily announced she was pregnant. The news spread through Brooksville like wildfire, and once again, Emily was the center of attention. Sarah congratulated her friend, but inside, she was seething. She began to gather information, using her skills as a marketer to dig into Emily's life. She discovered that Emily's husband, James, had a secret. He was having an affair. Armed with this knowledge, Sarah set her plan in motion. She anonymously sent the evidence of James's infidelity to Emily, knowing it would shatter her friend's world. And it did. Emily was devastated, and in the aftermath, she turned to Sarah for support. But Sarah's support was conditional. She convinced Emily to leave James, to start a new life without him. She even offered to let Emily stay with her while she got back on her feet. Emily, heartbroken and vulnerable, agreed. Living together, it seemed like old times. But beneath the surface, Sarah was still seething with resentment. She watched as Emily struggled to rebuild her life, and rather than offering genuine support, she subtly undermined her at every turn. Sarah's plan was working. Emily was becoming more and more dependent on her, and Sarah relished the power she now held over her once dominant friend. She had destroyed Emily's marriage, and now she was destroying her spirit. But Sarah's victory was short-lived. Emily, ever resilient, began to piece her life back together. She found a new job, started seeing a therapist, and even began to date again. Sarah's control over her friend was slipping, and it drove her to desperate measures. One night, after a particularly heated argument, Sarah snapped. Fueled by years of pent-up resentment and the knowledge that she was losing her grip on Emily, she did the unthinkable. She poisoned Emily's drink, intending to make her sick enough to miss an important job interview the next day. But the dosage was too high. Emily became violently ill, and by the time Sarah realized what she had done, it was too late. Emily died in the hospital, her body unable to fight off the effects of the poison. Sarah was arrested and charged with murder. The trial was swift, and the evidence against her was damning. She was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. In the end, Sarah's jealousy and resentment had destroyed not only her best friend, but also her own life. As she sat in her prison cell, she had plenty of time to reflect on the choices she had made and the friendship she had thrown away. Emily's death sent shockwaves through Brooksville, and the town mourned the loss of one of its brightest stars. But for Sarah, the real punishment was knowing that she had been the architect of her own downfall. She had destroyed her best friend, and in doing so, had destroyed herself. And so, in the small town of Brooksville, the legend of Emily and Sarah's friendship took on a new, darker meaning. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how envy and resentment can poison even the closest of bonds.